company. Present company. Excluded in the night. Present company. Included in the fight.
All right. Thanks for coming, everyone. This is our first Okta Workflows Build Your First Flow webinar. Thanks for joining us today. This is intended for people that are just getting started with workflows. Maybe your team, maybe you joined a team that's been working on workflows. You want to learn some more on your own, or maybe you just have a general interest in what Okta Workflows can do for your organization. So today we're going to talk about. Oh, sorry, I didn't even introduce myself. My name is Mick Johnson. I'm a Workflows product specialist, and I've been at Okta for 6 years. Started on the IT engineering team, moved on to the Okta on Okta team and managed that for a few years, where I was basically during the Azuqua acquisition. I became obsessed, I guess, with the product, and so now I've joined the product acceleration team and helping advocate for workflows and get customers to realize the business value and what it can really add to an organization. And so today, what we're going to be, the agenda for today is we're give you a basic workflows overview, and then we'll go ahead and be configuring the Okta connector. So getting that up and running so that you're able to leverage that within workflows. And then, we're going to get to the meat and potatoes and start actually building some flows hands-on. And the one thing, we're not going to be taking any actions within the your Okta org. But if you have access to your Okta previews org, I would recommend using that org. I mean, it will be okay. We're not like I said, we're not going to be taking any actions, but just don't want to make any mistakes in your production org and cause any issues for you. And then once we get through some of that flow building, we're going to have some time for a Q&A. And as we're going through, we've got I've got some teammates here, Brent Garlow and Max Katz. And as we're going through some of these items, feel free to ask questions around, I'd keep them limited to, when we're doing the flow building, and if you're having issues with, setting up the connector, or as we're building out the flows, if something's not working properly, feel free to ask questions around that. And then if you have general workflows questions, best practices, use cases, things like that, I'd appreciate if we save that for the Q&A. As always, we have to share the safe harbor to remind customers, partners, and external audience members that these are all forward-looking discussions and should not be considered commitments to deliver. So, for those of you that aren't familiar with workflows, workflows are built with a simple if this, then that identity-based logic. A workflow starts with a trigger or an event. This can be many things: a new user created, a scheduled flow, change roles. And in this use case on this slide, you'll see that we're assigning a user to an app like Salesforce, which kicks the flow off. Next, you can run logic like an if else, then that function. In this example, we're granting user access to Salesforce, evaluating their user group. Are they on the immediate sales team? Then, I'd like to perform a deeper integration. So I'm assigning a territory in Salesforce within their role. And so we're going to go ahead and do that automatically. Finally, I want to chain on another action, another app. Here, I'm adding the user to a Slack channel, to a sales Slack channel in Slack, and sending a welcome message. This is a very, very basic example of what you can do within workflows, and how you can start to think about tying together solutions as we build customized flows that'll be relevant to your organization. Hopefully once you get your footing with Okta workflows, you'll be automating yourself out of a job. And by that, I mean, you'll no longer, you or your IT team will no longer have to perform these boring manual tasks, creating users, deactivating users, transferring files to their managers. And so as you know, Okta Workflows is a no-code, low-code automation platform. And organizations need to drive innovation, but may lack or have limited talent to support a range of internal and customer-facing initiatives. Existing talent can be overwhelmed or overburdened with the number of ticket requests, volume, demands, and not all are relevant to a particular skill set or job function, but is critical for their business needs or completing a project. And so, like I said, we want to reduce manual labor-intensive processes, so provisioning, data orchestration, et cetera, which can both be resource-intensive and also lead to a poor security posture. And so, here at Okta, security is paramount. Identity is one of the most highly targeted resources for threat actors today, and access controls implemented improperly can open your organizations up to risk. A lot of organizations have skill requirements. They need flexibility and extensibility to cover a wide surface area of users, apps, et cetera. And so solutions, you need to come up with solutions to be able to maintain that and have it scalable for the future. As I said earlier, Okta Workflow should be reducing manual business process for your organization. We've got user lifecycle management, so enabling deeper onboarding and offboarding integrations, creating users and apps, Salesforce, Slack, Office 365, Google Workspace, deep provisioning, so transferring folders to managers in Box or Google Drive, and then assigning group memberships based on certain profile attributes. In regards to security, detecting and alerting your IT team or security team with suspicious activities, capturing phishing events from GoPhish, which is one of our templates that we have, identifying and suspending inactive users. You don't want to pay for licenses for users if they're not actually active, or as a lot of IT departments have, are these ghost users that are either test users or service accounts that may no longer exist. And so identifying those and removing them from your org. IT operations, getting admin notifications when certain events may occur that are relevant to your organization, delegating flows as one-click actions, and then identity-centric ITSM. Or, let's say it's just, providing a better onboarding experience for your employees. So, when they get onboarded or added to an application, you send a message to that new employee or customer, welcoming them, letting them know, hey, you've been assigned this application. This is some additional information that you may need that could be relevant to your team. And so you can talk a little bit about the relevant use cases. Lifecycle management, I think, was the bread and butter initially when we started. And LCM is, essentially, it's the joiner, mover, leaver. So if any of you have set up any applications within the Okta admin console, you've leveraged probably some sort of API or schema integration that allows you to create users when they're added to an application, update them when certain Okta profile attributes are updated, or deactivate them once they become deactivated in your Okta org. So customers are wanting more flexibility to handle more of their provisioning needs. Organizations want to go further than just joiner, mover, leaver, but perform deeper actions within provisioning across the lifecycle, triggering granular actions along the way. With Okta Lifecycle Management, our main use cases are basic automation. So simplifying onboarding from day one, automate app provisioning and deprovisioning. And the main benefit here is being able to automate provisioning across your Okta org. Optimizing joiner, mover, leaver, that experience and being able to scale it. What we also have is advanced automation. So customize and extend Okta. So workflows is essentially, almost like an extension of the Okta admin console. And so it allows you to automate a lot of the things that you can do within the Okta admin console and build some customized business logic around it. It also helps, protect your apps from breaches. So we're continuing to push what's capable in identity management here at Okta. And one of the ways is evaluating a lifecycle state. Like the earlier example, we can reduce risk with inactive users by discovering their inactivity status and suspending them, or building a report and notifying the relevant teams, or just deprovisioning them. For external threats, a user is able to report suspicious activity. It's one of the Okta events that we have in workflows. Then we can trigger an automated alert while moving the user to a high risk group and take actions from there. So do we want them to force reset the sessions that they have? Do we want to expire the session? Do we want to reset their password, or just get in touch with IT to move forward and kind of evaluate what had happened there? So we can take a little bit more of some granular actions during the on and offboarding to revisioning across multiple apps. Here we're adding workflows on top of joiner, mover, leaver actions and creating a Salesforce account, assigning a license, looking up that team in Okta, and then assigning territory within Salesforce. The final step is to create a Slack account where users automatically added to the relevant sales Slack channel and sent a welcome message. In the case of deprovisioning, the action starts with suspending the user, looking up the user's manager, transferring folders and permissions in Box to that manager, and then automatically deleting the user in Box. Non-destructive editing allows you to make changes to these files and data without overwriting the original data, which remains available to you in case you need to revert to it. All right, so with that being said, now that we've gone through some of the, just a high-level overview of what workflows is made for, and some use cases, let's go ahead and configure the Okta connector. Just exit this. All right. Looks like I need to sign in again. So what we'll want to do is sign into your Okta org, preferably your Okta preview instance, and head on over to the admin console. All right, now that you're in the Okta admin console, I will say that you should you'll need to be a super admin in order to leverage workflows. So if you're not, you can maybe still hang out and watch the webinar, and we're going to be sending a recording of this later. But for those of you that are, the first thing that we're going to do is go to our applications, and we'll want to make sure that the user that you're signed in with has access to the Okta Workflows app. So you'll see that in the Assignments tab. I'll give everyone just a second to do that. And then if you're already signed the Okta Workflows app, we'll also want to make sure that you're assigned the Okta Workflows OAuth app. And here, this is this is where we would be defining the scopes. So if we go to granted, that the Okta connector will be authorized to access. And so out of the box, this is the scopes that the Okta connector will have access to. If you wanted to grant additional scopes, you can go to the not granted consents and take a look at what you'd like to add to your org. That being said, let's go ahead and go to workflow and then workflows console. Cool. And then that brings us to the workflows homepage. I'm just going to quickly pause here, and if there was some individuals that were still assigning themselves the Okta Workflows or the Okta Workflows OAuth app, give them time to do that. So here we've got our workflows homepage. We've got some getting started videos. So these are going to be for people that are just getting started with workflows. And then we also have some advanced videos. So people that are a little bit more comfortable with the platform and want to look at maybe some more advanced use cases. And then down here, we have some of our templates. And so our templates are pre-built workflows that have been created by the team that I'm on, as well as other individuals within Okta. And really what they are it's a framework that fits a use case that we've heard from customers. And I would consider it a blueprint, something that is going to solve a particular use case, but it's not a one size fits all solution. So any template can be modified to your business use case. So if you want to add on to it and make some add some additional logic to it, or if you think that it's you don't need it to do as much as that it's offering, you can remove cards, you can make it your own. And then what I want to point out up here, which I think is one of the most important pieces, is the resources that are available to you, especially as you're just getting started with workflows. And so here we have our workflows documentation. This is going to give you almost everything relevant to workflows as far as documentation. We've got release notes, how to build flows, run flows, the connectors that are available and the actions that they're able to take, the functions that exist, the templates, and some of the tutorials that we have. And then I think a great part to look at as you're thinking about ideas and what you want to build out is taking a look at the best practices and and system limits to really understand, what can I do with workflows? What's, we kind of call it the green, yellow, red zones, and, ensuring that what you're trying to build is going to be within one of those. And then for those of you, I'm sure some of you have been to the office hours that we offer, but we have office hours scheduling. And what that is we offer, it's myself and the workflows team to talk with customers about, what are you doing with workflows? Are you getting stuck somewhere when you're trying to build something out? Talking about best practices, or if you just, we have a lot of people that come in that just want to be a fly on the wall and hear about what other customers are talking about, and seeing, what they're building. Maybe that's going to be applicable to what they want to build in their org, since, it's all, a lot of it's identity centric, and as Okta customers, I assume, there are going to be similar problems across customers and organizations. We also have our self-paced workflows training. This is free for Okta customers. All you need to do is register and sign up for it. And then you kind of go through the curriculum, which covers a lot of the key processes and components of workflows, and really gets that fundamental understanding of what's possible and what you can do within the platform. And then here, the new features and connectors, that's going to bring you to our release notes. So any additional functionality or features that are going to be added to workflows or connectors are going to be here in our release notes. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and for those of you that already have your Okta connector set up, feel free to go get a coffee or tune out for a little bit. But for those of you that haven't, we're going to go ahead and set up the Okta connector. So we'll do a new connection, and what we want to do is look for the Okta connector here in our list. Go ahead and click on that and the domain. So for me, that's going to be flowbuilder.oktapreview.com. And then what we're going to do is go back to the Okta Workflows OAuth application. And if you scroll down, you'll see a client ID and a client secret. And that's how we're going to authorize the Okta connector here. So go ahead and copy that, come back here, paste the client ID, and then copy the client secret, and then click create. All right, so if all went well, you'll be able to see this little green check mark over here saying the connection's healthy, the credentials that you set this connector up with worked, and you should be good to go to start building flows with the Okta connector. And so the first flow that we're going to build is going to be when a user's assigned an application. We want to know who was assigned, and so what we'll be doing is adding the user assigned application event. We want to read the user because we want to know their email address, their first name, last name, and then what we're going to do is write that to a table. So pretty simple flow, and in order to do that, let's hop on over to the Okta admin console again, and we're just going to add a simple bookmark application. So if you click on Browse App Catalog and we search for bookmark app, you'll see it come up in the search results. Go ahead and click on that, and we'll add the integration. So we'll just call this Workflows Demo. And the URL really doesn't matter since we're not going to be actually using it. I'm going to put Google, I'll hit done. And you can see that we have we create an application that we can use within workflows. And so let's go back over to workflows and let's go ahead and create a new flow. So let's call the flow name user assigned application. And you'll want to make sure, as you're starting to build out these flows that you check this box, because this is going to allow you to see all the data that passes through the flow. So you want to see all the inputs and outputs. It's very helpful for debugging. If you do have some more sensitive data that are going to, that's going to be coming through these flows, once the flow is up and running and you validated that it works, you're free to uncheck that. And that data won't be passing through here anymore. But for the most part, most of our customers typically keep that checked. So what we'll do is add an event, click on Okta, let's see, user assigned application. So you'll see when we click on that we have connections listed here. So if you had multiple Okta, connectors for different orgs, that they would show up here. But in this example, we're just going to click the one connection that we have. And so what we're going to do is use let's go ahead. So to all apps. And we'll choose the workflows demo. Hit save. So now you can see here we have the output from the resulting Okta event. We've got date, time, the admin that performed the action and some of their relevant information, the Okta user, and their relevant data, and then if we won't use that this data in this example, but if you had a SCIM or API integration set up for an application, you may have some additional data here that you'd be able to leverage, such as let's say Office 365 or like Google Workspace. These may not necessarily correspond with what you have as an Okta user, but a lot of the time they do correspond. And then you have your application, that they were assigned to, and then some additional details down here. So we'll go ahead, and then from there, what we can do is so we're going to click the add function. So add app action. That's going to allow you to take action with with any of the connectors you've set up. The functions are the logic that you're going to be building workflows with. From here, we're actually going to use an add app action. So we'll do Okta, and then we want to scroll down and read the user, because we want to know, what's their first name, what's their last name, just to just to record it for this example. And what you see here are the outputs that you're going to get from this card. It's going to be essentially everything that's available in your Okta profile attributes. And so you can see down here, I have some, actually, this is a brand new org, so I don't have any custom attributes, but if you did have custom attributes in your org, you would see them down here as well. So if you wanted to ever, leverage those, you'd be able to do that. And so
hey, Mick, real quick, there was a comment asking if you could go back to the first card, and then maybe you're going a little fast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's see, the first card, the user assigned application. Yeah, happy to. And so here, what you can do, you can leverage the app instance ID. But in this example, we're trying to keep it simple. So we're just going to use the application instance and use the drop downs. And so what we'll do is for the application field, you can go ahead and choose all apps. And then for the application instance, you know, if you didn't call it workflows demo, you would go ahead and you know, select the label of the application that you created. All right. Cool.
And then Mick,
Hopefully that,
do you want me to let you know when people have their hands raised for questions?
yeah, that works.
Looks like Paul has his hand up right now.
All right. Yeah, Paul, if you want to type your question. Oh, mistake. No worries. Cool. Yeah, so we'll continue with the flow. And I'll just start from, you know, since some people may still be, or just, you know, got the initial card set up. What we're going to do is add an app action. Click on the Okta connector. And from here, we're going to go ahead and read user. And so these outputs here, you know, really like best practices, I would say, is, you know, only check the boxes that you're going to need to leverage. So in this instance, you don't have to do this. You can leave, you know, you could have everything checked. It does make it a little cleaner. And, you know, as you're building things out, you know, if you're going to be collaborating with other people on your team, having, you know, reducing the complexity in the noise is going to be, I think, helpful. So we'll grab the Okta ID of the user. Actually, yeah, we'll grab the Okta ID, the username, first name and last name. Go ahead and save that. And so this is where, you know, the low code, no code, I think, you know, comes into play if you haven't used Okta workflows before. So we've got the event here. These are our outputs. And if you need a particular output for the next card, you know, you just go ahead and drag that Okta ID into that input. And that's how it's going to work. That's how it's going to work for a lot of the logic that you're building out. It's going to be chaining these events together and the logic together. And so now that, and yeah, I guess before I continue, what we can do. So we have app actions, what I've showed you. Functions are, you know, some of the logic, the, you know, programming logic, I guess, if you know, if you're familiar with coding. And then notes. So notes are a good way to, you know, at a point in the flow, let you know what is the flow doing right now. Why, like, it just, you know, it's helpful for documentation purposes. It's helpful for if you're you know, collaborating or building a flow with multiple people. And so here we'll say, you know, actually we go ahead and drag backwards. You know, reading Okta user attributes. And so you can, you know, add as little or as much as you want, but I think, you know, adding some notes in your flows is going to be beneficial for everybody involved. So from there, we're reading that user. We've got the username first. We got the ID, username, first name, last name. And now what we want to do is actually write this content to a table. And so if you go to add function and we go down to tables, although I know we haven't created the table yet, we'll get there in just a second. So if we create row and Apologies if I'm moving too fast. So we can click on choose table. Even though we don't have a table created yet, from this, this dialog, we'll be able to create that table. And so go ahead and click new table. All right, so workflows, Okta Workflows has tables, allows you to, not quite a database, not like Google Sheets or Excel, but very similar, where you have rows and columns and potentially like unique identifiers that you want to leverage. And in this instance, I would consider it like a logging table. So we're going to be logging users that are assigned to a particular application, and what we care about in this demo is going to be their Okta ID, their Okta username, their first name, their last name. So if we enter, so let's just say the workflows demo app. So that's going to table. So we have a name here. Let's create the new column. We can call that Okta ID. And you are allowed to have spaces. And you can, for this demo, we're only going to be using text, but there is the capability of, leveraging different data types. So text, number, date, Boolean, true, false, and counters. We'll go ahead and add another. And this one will put Okta username. And click add another. First name. We'll add one more. Last name. Then you can click create on this one, since we won't be creating another column. So cool. We've got our Okta Workflows table created. If we head back, now we can click on choose table. If it doesn't show up immediately, it will be, if you don't have anything in your org yet, it'll be in the shared folder. If you created a separate folder for what you're doing, here in the webinar, it'll be in that folder. So it's specific to essentially where that flow currently lives. And so in this instance, we're in the shared folder. Go ahead and choose that. Cool. Go ahead and save it. And now you can see the columns that we created. And we have a row ID here. Yes, how do we get out of so let me just hop out of this for a second. So I'll go back into the table. And so yeah, there isn't from the UI, what you can do is click on flows, and that should bring you back to the folder that you were working in. And for people that are trying to select the table, like I said, tables, create row, we choose that table. By default, it looks like it's not selecting a table here. And so if you click shared folder, or if you have a limited number of folders, it should be in the folder that your flow is in. And that should bring you, yep, and yeah, so there are no flows yet. And we're just about to say the flow won't show up in that list until it's saved. So we go ahead and choose that, click save. And so yeah, these will be the column names that we created. And yeah, just for good measure at this point, what we can do is go ahead and click that save button. That was a good reminder to do that. As you're building your flows, similar to like if you're working on any sort of document. you want to save it as you progress. And so, next what we'll be doing here is dragging the Okta ID that we have from the output here, the Okta username, the first name, and the last name. There is not an autosave option currently, but there we do have on the roadmap some versioning when it comes to flows, but that actually may not be relevant to that question. But yeah, if you're having issues, Brian or Brent might be able to help you out with answering those questions. And if for some reason, you created the flow, you left, and you try to create the table, feel free to take a screenshot of what we have here. I mean, since we only have a few cards, and so building that flow again shouldn't take too long. So what you can do, we've got essentially we're dragging the ID from the Okta user, we're reading that user, and then we're creating a row. I'm going to go ahead and save that flow. And so for any of these flows to be able to be executed, we will need to turn the flow on. And so let's go ahead and turn that flow on. Cool. So now this event is now active in your Okta org. And so when we assign a user to the application that we created, this flow should kick off, read the user, output the Okta ID, username, first name, last name, and then create a row in our table. So testing the flow, you can test the flow before turning it on. And so the question was, can we test the flow before turning it on? The answer is yes. But as you can see, different events are going to have different output data type outputs. And so in this instance, we would need to have the Okta user object. So how that would be interpreted, and being able to essentially parse that out to our read user card. Usually, I mean, in this example, the best way to test this out would be just to leverage a test user and see what that looks like. And so I think having test users in your preview org as you're starting to build out these workflows is going to be it's almost like a real world example of how it's going to work once it's it would be moving to production. And so I'll show you how that works in just a second here. And what I meant by you would need to have the Okta user object formatted properly. But back to the flow. So the flow's on. We're reading the user, we're creating the row. So if we hop back into the applications that we have, and we go to the bookmark app that we created, and we click on it, we can click on assign to people. And so I am going to assign it to Luke. Save and go back. All right, this is the fun part of live demos, making sure it actually works. So if we go here, and one of the things we haven't covered yet is flow history. Since we didn't have any flow executions yet, we wouldn't have any flow history. But every flow that you create, as long as you have checked this save all data passes through the flow checkbox, you'll be able to see all the outputs and inputs of the cards that you have here. And that really helps, with debugging, when you get errors kicked back, like just overall making sure that the flow that you built runs properly. And so if we go to flow history, yeah, cool. So what we'll see is we have the output of the event. You can see I was the admin that assigned that user. And what I was referring to earlier was, this, you could, so once this is run once, you could, we could copy this, or you can use the copy to clipboard, click test. If we went down to the Okta user, we could paste that JSON object and then run the test, and it would work. It's just having the right object, key pair values that the flow is expecting. But it's definitely possible. So I mean, if it's something that, so let's say you had this flow, you made some modifications to it, you have your flow history, and you just wanted to, you don't really care about any of your outputs, you only care about the user. Yeah, you could certainly go in here, copy that to the clipboard, and when you test it, you could even save your test inputs. And so if we run this again, and then, let's say we ran into an error, and we're like, all right, let's, made some changes, I'm going to test it again. Test should be, it did not save. Might have done something wrong. But back to the initial question is, you can answer the JSON object. You just need to know what the key pair values, that it's looking for. All right, so we've got 10 minutes left. I don't think we'll get through another flow, but really quickly, I just wanted to show you before we kick off Q&A, how you can, so let's say, so we're in our preview org and we want to import this into our production org. And so what you can do is you'll have the ability, so if you go to your folders, back to, if you click on flows and you go back to your folders, you'll see a little gear here. And if you click that gear, it allows you to rename it, export, import, and delete it. In this instance, we want to export this. So if you click export, it's going to say, okay, it's ready for download. Go ahead and download the folder. And so what you'll see is your folder name .folder. You can, and if you wanted to export individual flows, you can do that as well. You would just go into that folder, and then to the far right, there's another gear that looks similar to the folders, gear option. And you can, there's a number, the options are a little different from the folders. You can edit the name and description. You can kick off the test. You can duplicate it. So if you're, you're trying to, make changes, but you want to keep your, the one that works intact. Or you can export that individually. And so we've downloaded the folder. And so in order to import that into a folder, let's say, let's create a new folder name. And the way that I did that, sorry if I'm moving too fast. And again, this video, this webinar will be available and sent out to everybody that's here, the recording. So you'll be able to go back and take a look at what we've done here and, try to rebuild anything. So you click on the blue plus button. Let's type in workflows demo, save, and now we'll leverage that import option. So if we click import, now we'll choose a file from our computer, or you can drag and drop. So we've got our shared folder.folder. Go ahead and open it, and then you can see the flow that we had created. And so we've exported the shared folder, and then we've imported it into a new folder. Okay, I know we only have 7 minutes left, but I think we have some outstanding questions that we can try to address. The first one was, can you explain why we created the table for the app assigned? Yeah, so let's see. Oh, and I'm sorry, we didn't even check out the table after we'd created that. So we could have hopped over and seen, the Okta ID, the username, first name, last name had been created. But really, the main reason that we, created that table was, essentially for demo purposes, or let's say you want to run a monthly report and you want to know who's been assigned this application in the last month. Or, we wouldn't even have to create a row. We could have another action that says, email their manager, or send an email to the IT team, or there's a number of actions. It really depends on what you want to, like, what you care about when it comes to events and workflows. And then really quick before, because I see a lot of great questions, and I think it would be, I want to make sure that we're addressing them. So if you go back to that homepage and we click on our office hours, so we have, this has been more of like a one-to-many kind of interaction with everybody that's attended today. But we have our community office hours, which are hour long. You can book time with us. So essentially the team that's here today, and you can talk about what you're trying to build, any questions potentially about what we talked about here today, really anything and everything workflows related. And so if I don't get to your question by the end of the webinar today, please feel free to sign up for one of these, and we're happy to talk through some of those. All right, so when will the recording be available? Essentially, once it gets uploaded, to Zoom, and then sometime, hopefully today, worst case scenario, tomorrow, we'll send out the recording to all attendees. Any specific requirement when importing workflows from preview to prod? I think what to ensure, they're making sure that you have the right connectors, I think, set up. And so, when you would import that, those flows in, ensuring you have the right connection, configured for each connector and the actions that it would be taking. But I think Brent might be writing an answer as well. But
I was going to type the same thing.
But yeah, I mean, it's, I think, and I just really want to stress, when you're, especially as people just starting, getting started with workflows, to be working in your Okta preview org and starting there, because you will break things. It's best to do that in a non-production environment. I mean, I break things all the time, and I certainly don't do that in an Okta production environment. So how can we test app provisioning and preview since only our production account actually updates our apps? So yeah, good question. I think having a UAT or sandbox environment for Okta is important, but I think it's also important for any any applications that you consider critical that you're trying to automate. And workflows is a very robust, powerful automation tool, and has the ability to take actions on Okta users, groups, lifecycle actions, other applications that are outside of Okta, and ensuring just as let's say if you were writing a script or building an application, ensuring that you're testing all of that functionality out and automation out in a safe environment is going to be critical to ensuring the success of transitioning that to your production environment. And for those of you that don't either are unaware of your Okta preview org, I would reach out to your account exec or CSM to see if maybe one already exists, or if you don't have one, have them spin one up for you, or have them help you through that process. Any coding skill required for building custom workflows, and if so, what language support? I think just some of the core fundamental concepts of building custom logic with workflows, having programming background is great. You certainly don't need it. It's the platforms, once you kind of understand how the events work, how the inputs and outputs work, how connectors and the functions work, it's more just about just kind of identifying the logic that you want to leverage in order to make that automation happen. And so that's what our community office hours are for. That's what some of the training, the Flowgrammers training is for. And I think this fall we're actually going to be offering some actual instructor-led training. And so stay tuned for that. And yeah, and I know, looks like we're at the top of the hour. Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming in today. I hope this was helpful, and we'll be sharing out the recording, as soon as I can, as soon as we get it uploaded and processed. Yeah, we're going to be doing these monthly, and you're welcome. Like I said, you're welcome to sign up for our community office hours. And yeah, I appreciate everyone for coming in. Thank you.